The containment field flickered ominously as Ava Casper pressed her palm against the observation glass. Behind her, the Zeltharian research team huddled in what they probably thought was a safe distance, approximately 3 meters back, their chromatophores flashing distress patterns across their translucent skin. "Subject will expire in approximately 47 seconds, announced lead researcher Kickstall, his voice carrying that peculiar whistling quality that marked his species' speech. Atmospheric composition reaching lethal saturation. Ava glanced at her wrist display. The numbers confirmed what her burning lungs already knew. Carbon dioxide at 8%, oxygen dropping to 11%, and a delightful cocktail of xenon and methane gases that shouldn't exist in breathable atmosphere. The chamber temperature had spiked to 43 degrees Celsius. By any reasonable measure, she should be unconscious already. Instead, she pulled out her datapad. "Fascinating," she muttered, fingers dancing across the screen. "The xenon is heavier than expected. Creates a stratification effect around 2 meters. Temperature differential is accelerating the gas separation, though." Kickstall's chromatophores shifted from orange distress to purple confusion. "The human is documenting?" "Of course she is," sighed junior researcher Mivrin from the back. I told you humans were abnormal." Ava's vision was starting to tunnel, but she'd been hypoxic before. High-altitude climbing on Kepler 442b, that unfortunate incident in the Martian caves, her entire second semester at the academy. This was nothing new. She wedged herself into the corner where the cooler, oxygen-rich air pooled near the floor vent and continued typing. "Environmental Stress Test Protocol 7B, she narrated into her recorder, voice steady despite the sweat pouring down her face. "Personal observation. Designers failed to account for gas density variance. Carbon dioxide sinking but xenon-methane mix creating a stable toxic layer. Stupid design. We'll fix." "The human called our design stupid," Kickstall said, voice flat with disbelief. 30 seconds to projected termination," announced the automated system. Ava's fingers flew across her datapad. The Zeltharian environmental systems were actually quite elegant once you understood their logic. They just hadn't accounted for bipedal species that stood upright in stratified atmospheres. She rerouted the ventilation protocols, inverting the circulation pattern. The containment chamber hissed. Fresh air, relatively speaking, began pumping in from the floor rather than the ceiling. "What is she doing?" Kickstall's chromatophores were now flashing rapid fire between colors, indicating severe cognitive distress. Ava gulped air greedily as the oxygen content climbed back toward survivable levels. Her hands shook as she pulled herself upright using the wall. "Your environmental controls," she said between breaths, "are designed for quadrupedal species. You pump clean air from the top. Humans stand tall. We breathe from up here." She tapped her chest at roughly 1.6 meters high. "Poison collects at head level. Basic atmospheric dynamics." She pulled up the schematics on her datapad and turned it toward the observation window. "See? Your circulation model assumes breathing zones near the floor. For humans, you need lateral injection points at 1.5 to 2 meter heights, with extraction at both floor and ceiling. Creates proper convection." The research team stared. Ava couldn't read Zeltharian facial expressions well. They didn't really have faces. But the absolute stillness of their chromatophores suggested she'd broken something in their worldview. "The test wasn't supposed to be survivable," Mivrin said quietly. "The entire purpose was to establish lethal thresholds." "Oh." Ava blinked. "Was I supposed to die?" "Yes." "Huh." She looked at her datapad, then back at the researchers. "Well, that's awkward. Want me to write up the failure analysis anyway? I've got some good data on tolerance curves and compensatory breathing patterns." Kickstall moved closer to the glass, his body language suggesting careful approach of something dangerous. "You knew the experiment was designed to kill you?" "I mean, yeah." Ava shrugged. "You guys were pretty clear about the liability waivers. Death or permanent injury, standard stuff. The pay was excellent, though, and I needed the credits for my ship repairs. Plus, you know science," she grinned. "Also, I didn't think you'd actually kill me. That would be terrible research ethics. We are establishing xenobiological limits for refugee habitat construction." Kickstall's chromatophores flared bright red. "We need to know what kills species." "That's the point. How can we establish safety margins if you don't die?" Ava considered this. "Okay, fair point. But counterpoint. Now you know humans can survive way worse than you thought, and you have a working environmental system that doesn't kill us. Win-win? She uploaded her modifications to the facility's main computer. There. I've updated your atmospheric control algorithms. Should work for most bipedal species between 1.4 and 2.2 meters tall. You'll need to adjust for anything taller, but this covers like 80% of galactic refugees. You're welcome. You're welcome? Mivrin looked like he might molt from stress. You just sabotaged our death test and said you're welcome? Optional thank you, Ava corrected. No pressure. Just thought it might be polite. She stretched, joints popping. So same time tomorrow? I saw Protocol 7C involves radiation exposure. I've got some ideas about that one too. Kixtal was quiet for a long moment. His chromatophores finally settled into a resigned shade of blue. The human survived lethal atmospheric toxicity, reverse-engineered our environmental systems, corrected our design flaws, and is now volunteering for radiation poisoning. Yep. Ava's grin was perhaps too cheerful for someone who'd been dying minutes ago. I'm updating the human threat assessment files, Mivrin said wearily. Oh, come on, Ava protested. I'm helpful. That's what makes you terrifying. Later, in the facility cantina, Ava sat with her datapad, compiling her notes while sipping something the Zeltharians had promised was safe for human consumption. It tasted like battery acid mixed with cinnamon, but she'd had worse. Kixtal approached cautiously, placing a credit chip on the table. Your payment plus hazard bonus. Sweet. Ava pocketed the chip. Hey, about tomorrow's test. We've canceled it. What, why? Kixtal's chromatophores rippled with what might have been amusement. Because our goal is establishing lethal thresholds, Ava Casper. And we're beginning to suspect humans don't have any. Ava laughed. Don't be ridiculous. We're super fragile. We just adapt well. You turned our death chamber into a design seminar. I mean, it needed fixing. Kixtal made a sound like wind through hollow tubes. Zeltharian laughter. The council wants to hire you. Permanent position. Habitat safety consultant. Really? Ava's eyes lit up. Does it pay well? Extremely. Also includes comprehensive life insurance, which, given that you're human, will be astronomically expensive. I'll take it. She stood, offering her hand. Kixtal stared at it uncertainly before extending a tentacle-like appendage. They shook. As Ava walked out of the facility that evening, she pulled up her personal log. Day 1 of xenobiological stress testing. Survived murder atmosphere, accidentally got promoted. Humanity 1. Lethal experiments 0. Behind her, Mivrin updated the human assessment file with a single note. Do not attempt to kill. They'll just fix your mistakes and ask what's next. It seemed, Ava reflected, that the galaxy still had a lot to learn about humans, and she was more than happy to teach them, one near-death experience at a time. Retry HJ.